Everyone, it's Emil. It's Emil Guillermo. Emil, Amok to you. Absolutely the most secret podcast on earth. I mean, really, you've got to really find it. Look hard to find this. But if you found this live, congratulations. You know, you can find us on YouTube at Emil Amok1. You can find us on Twitter at Emil Amok, EMILAMOK. Find us on Facebook at fb.com/Emil Guillermo or emilguillermo.media, one of those. And we talk at 2 o'clock about the news of the day and as pertains to Asian Americans. I have a particular Asian American focus. I'm Filipino American, and I live in California. So I want to talk about, today we're going to get into the state of the state. Gavin Newsom, who isn't running for president, but probably is running for president as hard as he possibly can, given decorum and given, the situation. He's running. I mean, he gave the State of the State address. We'll talk about that. State of the State. It's important for Asian Americans because this is our state. And then I want to talk about Sheng Thao, the Hmong American, the first Hmong American mayor of a major city. This is a big deal, right? 18 months ago, she was elected, and now she finds herself fighting for her life, for her political life. And the odd thing, and I like to point this out, is this all comes at a time when you have a former president, newly convicted felon who has 34 guilty verdicts against him, is running for president again. Something doesn't quite add up, right? In terms of the ethics meter. I mean, it just when you hear about it, well, here's a guy, a felon running for president. Meanwhile, Oakland Mayor Sheng Thao, who hasn't been charged with anything, is battling to survive politically, trying to hold on to her job as Oakland mayor. Now, many people think, oh, she doesn't deserve that job. She shouldn't be. Well, she should be voted out. Well, that's why they have the recall election. She should be voted out after her term. That's what's unfair. The recall is a tool. It's worked. I mean, it's working because they got enough signatures. There will be a recall election. But consider last week when the recall election happened, this shooting, the coincidence of a mass shooting in Oakland, 15 people shot in the Lake Merritt area, Juneteenth celebration. And then you had the raid, which really, now there's some debate whether or not the FBI owed her any kind of courtesy, or whether or not there should have been an attempt to say, hey, Mayor, you're the leader of Oakland. We want to get what we need. Are you going to cooperate? Now, the indicators are maybe the FBI did what it did because they suspected that there was not going to be cooperation. Hence, what do you expect? Right? I mean, they're going to go in, and the way these things work, some things have been leaked. The subpoena has been leaked. The documents that have some probable cause facts in there, some of them have been leaked out to reporters. It appears to be connected to a look into whether or not there was a play to pay scheme involving the Asian Americans who own the company that was handed the recycling contract in Oakland. And houses of the principals were all part of the search. So it's unclear whether, what kind of case the feds have against Sheng Thao. But yesterday when she spoke to the public, she was right. She hasn't been charged, and she is owed the presumption of innocence, the same presumption of innocence that we granted Donald Trump before he was convicted. Now he is convicted felon, Donald Trump, 34 guilty verdicts. But even then, right? I mean, Donald Trump was always given that presumption of innocence. But even when Donald Trump is found guilty, here he is, he's going to debate for the presidency as a former president, debating the president, Joe Biden. And Donald Trump is leading in the polls. This should show you how screwed up our politics is today. Where are our values? I mean, so whatever Sheng Thao said yesterday, I mean, I played it in episode 704. I played the tape as well as commented on it. I thought she did well to come out and say, hey, I'm innocent. I want answers. I want to know why it seems like the media knew a lot about this before, and why the right-wing media especially seemed to be ready to put out their narrative. And their narrative is anti-progressive, anti-woman, Oakland's makes San Francisco, well, no, Oakland is actually better than San Francisco in some ways in terms of its problems. But, the right wants to bash San Francisco. They want to bash anything where a progressive is leading. And they seem to be at the ready. Sheng Thao wants to know why. Why was it so orchestrated? But what I noticed about yesterday, and I talked about this, Sheng Thao played the race card, which I think was worth playing. I mean, here's the thing about Sheng Thao. First, Hmong American mayor of a major city, progressive. You got to go with your strength. She can't talk about the case. She doesn't know enough about the case. She doesn't have information from the U.S. Attorney's Office. She doesn't have, her attorney, Tony Brass, who has made statements about the case before he was hired by Thao, has said that it looks like the feds were far along in the case because the fact that there was no courtesy given to the mayor may have indicated that the mayor was not willing to cooperate. That was the implication from Tony Brass in an interview that he gave about 5 days ago. Since then, he became the mayor's attorney. But since the Monday press conference, Tony Brass backed down and said, no, I didn't know about this. I'm out of here. So that says something about Sheng Thao's organization, I guess, about how she's handling this. She says she's going to name the attorney, her new attorney, at some point. But then just a few hours ago, the director of communications, Francis Zamora, he quit. He resigned, which isn't a good look again when your comms guy quits. I was wondering who wrote her speech because I thought her speech was excellent at the news conference because it harped on the best thing she has going. She's the first Hmong American mayor of a major U.S. city. And someone must not like that. If it's playing the race card, it's playing the race card, but she has a point. And this is what she said. I mean, she talks about the right coming after her, the right buying a recall election yesterday. But this is the section that got me. And she talks about how this was a nightmare for her when her house was raided.
When you're in that much shock and your life has been turned upside down and in an instant, it is hard to know who you can trust. But what I do know is that this wouldn't have gone down the way it did if I was rich, if I had gone to elite private schools, or if I had come from money.
Think about that. Would it have happened to someone else, if the person were rich, from money, had gone to elite private colleges, Harvard, Yale, Stanford? I mean, look at Sheng Tao's story. Junior college, UC Berkeley, pregnant when she was 16, leaves the comfort of her family home to go on her own, child out of wedlock, single mom, working her way through college. I mean, she is a survivor, right? And you wonder if, hey, what if she were a white, or maybe third, second generation Asian American from Piedmont? There are such folks. Elite schools, where they've given her a knock on the door or a call before a knock on the door. I mean, you have to wonder about that. But that was a turning point in the press conference yesterday when you said, okay, she's going that way. She's crying victimhood. But in many ways, there's a realness to her victimhood versus the victimhood as displayed by someone like a Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump is not a victim. Oh, that New York AG's Joe Biden is in cahoots with the New York district attorney. No. Hey, state versus federal, two different things, right? No one was in cahoots. But now this, here with Sheng Tao, I wonder. But, this also is her best play. What can she say if she doesn't know the facts? What can she say? I think in many ways, this was her best play. And I'm wondering if it resonates. I mean, you think about it and you see who's against her. It's not just the rich billionaires and people in Piedmont and billionaires in San Francisco. The NAACP has also called for her to resign. An Asian American group was out there a couple times this week calling for her to resign. And I think what this points out is that the mayor has a great story. She can use it. She can claim victimhood. But the fact is, I think she's undermined because of one fact, and that's how she got elected. She was elected 18 months ago, or thereabouts in December, because of ranked choice voting. RCV, I guess it's called, ranked choice voting. It saves money because you vote for your second choice, and if your first choice loses, then the second choice votes goes, they get counted up. And if you look to see how Sheng Tao defeated all of the more, I don't want to say they were more popular, but the more established politicos in Oakland, the local politicos, it was because she got more number two votes. When you have more number two votes and not quite as many number one votes, you gamed the system, you gamed ranked choice voting. But in a situation like where she finds herself now, when she needs people to come to her aid, everyone says, you're my number two. You're not my number one. And I thought about that yesterday. I went back to a column I wrote back when Sheng Tao won. I mean, I was surprised that she won, but with ranked choice voting, everyone has a shot. I mean, it's a time saver, cost saver. You vote once, you rank the people according to how you like them, and then based on how the numbers that come up, if you got more number two votes than all the other guys, you win. And that's how Sheng Tao rode her way to City Hall. She wasn't very many people's number one, but she was enough number two that she won. Because right now, if there were big support for Sheng Tao, you would see them out there speaking. You would see the Bantas. Where are the Bantas? I mean, they've been really like waiting to read the tea leaves before they act. Where are, Rob and Mia, right? They're kind of like the power couple in Alameda County. I mean, when I saw that Mia Bonta wasn't exactly full-heartedly in support of Sheng Tao, I knew that she was going to have some problems. And Bonta's out of it, right? Because he doesn't want to get touched. So who were the people who thought that Sheng Tao should be number one? A lot of number twos out there, and they're not saying anything. So that really is one of the problems with where Sheng Tao finds herself. So what else can she do except come out swinging and say, hey, look, here I am. This is my worst nightmare, but I have been through worse. I'm not going to get distracted. She assured people about that. But then the way she closed, I thought, was really pretty telling, because she relied on her story once again.
Life. I am a mother, a fighter, a survivor. And when my parents came to this country fleeing genocide, they never could have imagined that their daughter would one day be mayor of Oakland. I am my ancestors' wildest dreams, and I am your mayor, Mayor Sheng Tao. Thank you.
That was a good closing mic drop moment. But is it enough? Sheng Tao has a story, a good story, but is that enough to get by this? She was right to come out and say, yeah, I'm innocent. I haven't been charged. She's owed the due process rights that everyone has given Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump was guilty, convicted on 34 of the 90 plus charges. So he still got like 50 some 60 charges that we're holding judgment on. We're reserving judgment on. But we got 34 solid convictions, guilties. So here's Sheng Tao saying, hey, look, I'm your mayor. Here's my story. I'm tough. I see you. She's saying, I'm poor. I know what it's like to be poor. That's how I can relate to you. See, it was a kind of a bonding move Sheng Tao did. It's a bonding move for the people of Oakland who are overlooked and unseen. Saying, I see you. That's what she said. I see you, Oakland. And I have to admit that when she said that, it made me think, that could work for people who are, quote unquote, low information voters, quote unquote, not really involved. They want someone who's involved, someone who's not part of the system. In that way, maybe Sheng Tao borrows a little from the Trump playbook as a populist who's been railroaded, bullied. But I'll say it's much more credible with Sheng Tao than it is with Donald Trump. Richie Rich, Mr. Privileged, Mr. Billionaire, who is also a liar you can't count on. He will say anything to get your vote. And one of the things that he's touting right now is this no tax on tips, which sounds good. But when no tax on tips starts playing around with the federal deficit and they've got to make up for something, where do you think that money is going to be made up? Not on the backs of the wealthy, I assure you, but on the backs of the people who thought they were benefiting from no tax on tips, but are instead being hurt because now the government's broke and they got to find the shortfall somewhere, make up for it. So anyway, I'm just fascinated by the Sheng Thao story because I want to see what happens. I want to see how the U.S. Attorney's Office, how it gets released or how it gets leaked, if they have enough in their case to go ahead and make charges, because if they do, then this story becomes even more curious. Well, I mean, you'll have something there, and then there'll be calls for her to, because of the recall effort, to drop out. But frankly, I think the recall effort was a shot in the dark. It got through, but I'm never big on recall efforts. I always think that if you want to get someone out, then you wait till the next election. Let the person do what they can to undo whatever ill will that she's caused you, and let's see if she can get herself out of this. If it's beyond that, then, but I don't think it's beyond that, because I think a lot of the troubles that Sheng Thao has faced are things that I don't know if anyone else would have had any easier time. The only thing that another person might have had is more room, more public goodwill. I think that's one of the problems, again, with ranked choice voting. You can't develop that public goodwill. Not if you're number two. And believe me, there are allies out there who want to be number one. They're not saying anything to defend Sheng Thao. Everyone's keeping arm's length distance. So I feel for her because she's got nothing except her story, which she relied heavily on in that Monday press conference. It's a good story. She's a survivor. She's tough. She's probably seen worse than all this political stuff, this political nonsense. Having a baby out of wedlock, working as a single mom. But she was also right to say it's hard to know who to trust. So we know who she's gotten rid of. She's gotten rid of her lawyer. She's gotten rid of her comms guy. Is she going to get rid of her? I mean, some people have suggested that her partner and main advisor has not exactly been a help. This is coming from reports that were on ABC News. One of the people interviewed by the feds, the FBI, includes a former chief of staff or a former high-level staffer of Thao's, who said that maybe she just got the wrong advice from people, and maybe she was just a little too inexperienced. That has nothing to do with your race or your poverty, or how you were raised in poverty. It just has something to do with the people you bring into your circle and the people you trust. So I'm intrigued, I guess primarily because of the historic sense that Thao is the first Hmong American. I mean, that really is quite a significant thing. The Hmong, screwed over by the U.S., fighting that secret war in Laos, then forced to flee genocide because they were not protected, and then put in refugee camps in Thailand, then sent to all parts of America. Minnesota, Wisconsin, Fresno, the Bay Area. Some ended up here in the Bay Area. I remember doing the story in 2003, Thailand, Hmong Americans, or Hmong looking to be Americans, resettled as refugees where they lived in the Stockton area. And, you know, she was part of that generation, Sheng Thao. She has not had an easy life, but she has persevered, and it's admirable that she's survived. Can she survive this? If she's guilty of anything, if they found her with her hand in the cookie jar, if she's guilty of anything, the facts are there, then it's sad. But what do you say? We're in the era of political bad behavior, right? Where Bob Menendez can be on trial once, and I think it was a hung jury, or right, the first time was a hung jury. Now he's got his hand caught in the cookie jar again. There's like evidence. The evidence is like so much evidence against him, at least that's been reported. Bribes to his wife, to him. And Menendez still thinks he can run for public office. Maybe not as a Democrat, but as an independent. That's how normalized corruption has become in America. So we have to say, okay, so there's Menendez, there's Donald Trump. Do we do a relative scale? Is Sheng Thao that bad? Hey, I don't know the evidence yet. Let's see the evidence. Let's see what kind of case they have. But I'm just saying that it says something in our politics of today where people with bad behavior from all parties, Menendez, Democrat, Trump, Republican, everyone gets excused to the point, or to the, well, yeah, to the degree that they have friends in high places who are willing to compromise their own values to support these people with money and votes. I don't know if Oakland's that way. But here you have someone who says, look, I'm poor like you. I have a poor back. I know what it's like. I've seen it all. I see you. You see me. Come on. She was building empathy, Sheng Thao, during that press conference. Did it work? Or do people just want good people to run? I mean, we know we don't want angels in our political offices. They're not angels. But we want ethical people. We want good people. If there's a shred of evidence that says that something went wrong, Sheng Thao says, no, there's no evidence. They're not going to charge me. That this isn't about me. We'll see. But it's just more, it just shows how our political environment in 2024, the era of bad political behavior, is so significant from the top to the bottom. Like I said, you see Donald Trump running for president, instead of talking about the facts, he's talking about getting pre-debate drug tests, pre-debate drug tests, because he suspects that Joe Biden's going to get a shot up his ass, and it's not a COVID shot. It's like some kind of performance-enhancing drug, which is totally baloney. But that's the kind of political discourse we have in this era, where bad behavior is normalized. I'm just shocked. When I heard Trump say that on tape last couple days. And I'm frankly surprised that, here's the man, 34 felonies, running for the highest office of the land, And hey, it's all right. Seemingly all right. Meanwhile, Sheng Tao calls out the double standard and says, hey, I'm innocent. Give me the presumption of innocence. And then she says it's got to be because of race. It's got to be because of race or class. She points out how she grew up poor. That's how she knows. I think she has a point. And I think, unlike the people who are lining up against her, the bandwagon to get Sheng Tao. I mean, look, today it wasn't so great. I mean, she fired the comms director, or comms director resigned. And then the lawyer, Tony Brass, said he was blindsided, wasn't told anything about the news conference. So, we have some issues about the ability of Sheng Tao to run her office, her organization. But before I toss her out, I don't have a vote in Oakland. But before she gets tossed out, I think she deserves to be heard in court if she's charged. Because she's right that until that happens, all people have are these embarrassing shots of the FBI toting out hardware and boxes from these homes, which are humiliating and intended to destroy her. That's unfair. I mean, let the facts destroy her, not viral images of an FBI raid. Because the facts will be enough if they are there. So, I mean, I don't necessarily defend her, Sheng Tao. I defend her right to call for due process. I defend her right to say, yeah, she's been victimized here without using the term victim. A lot of reporters said, oh, well, where's her facts? She said that there are some former politicians who have campaign violations that are mounting up, and they don't have to live through the indignity that she did. Well, that's true, but they're also former elected officials, and she didn't provide the evidence. So you need to find, a lot of people pointed out, well, where's the evidence, Sheng Tao? You can't just make these wild claims. Well, some of them have a ring of truth, and basically, her story has a ring of truth. She's the mayor. She's the mayor of Oakland, like she said. But ranked choice voting, this is the thing. I mean, you don't hope that your public officials will get yanked because of whatever. But when ranked choice voting is considered, you say, well, how many people really wanted her? Well, the most people wanted her to be number 2. She was the second choice. Oh, she was the bridesmaid. Well, maybe that'll get people thinking about ranked choice. Because at some point, maybe you better have that head-to-head election where you whittle it down, to the top 2, and then have the top 2 battle it out. Because then you'll know, hey, democracy has spoken, the voters have spoken. Here is the person the most voters want. Not, well, the most voters wanted this person, but this person got the number 2 vote. So she became the number 1 by virtue of the number 2 vote. That is not exactly winning. You know what I mean? All right, today is the state of the state. I didn't even know about it. I mean, I was too busy thinking about Sheng Tao, the state of Oakland. AP News puts out, California governor defends progressive values, says they're an antidote to populism on the right. And I guess that is the way to look at it. Populism on the right, progressivism on the left. Is that it? I never thought it was broken down that way. But that was the definition as given by AP. AP wrote the headline. I'll read the first three graphs. Governor Gavin Newsom used his State of the State address on Tuesday to boost President Joe Biden ahead of Thursday's pivotal presidential debate, comparing Donald Trump's version of the Republican Party to the rise of fascism prior to World War II and offering Democrats' ideals as an antidote to the poisonous populism of the right. Democrats' ideals, or idealism, healthcare, abortion care, reproductive rights. I mean, think of this. You know that already the Republicans, and this, by the way, is in my column. Go to ALDEF, aaldef.org/blog. My column on Sheng Thao called, in 2024, a convict is in a presidential debate while Oakland's Mayor Sheng Thao fights to survive. And I get into this idea that, you know, the reason why, the Democrats' ideals, the Heritage Foundation has come up for the Republicans with a new plan, a new vision for how America should look like. They've got a Department of Life, if you could believe that. And just generally speaking, it's a theocratic vision of American life, where abortion is illegal, marriage is man and woman. I mean, it is, if you have freedoms today, expect many of them to be gone. That's the populism of the right, to take away your freedom. So, I mean, think of that lead sentence of AP, where it says that Newsom compared Donald Trump's version of the Republican Party to the rise of fascism prior to World War II and offering Democrats' ideals as an antidote to the poisonous populism of the right. Populism was very racist, in the 20s and 30s. Seems like we're going back to that time, the 1920s, the 1930s. Back to the AP story. Nowhere in Newsom's speech, which was pre-recorded and posted online to his social media channels, in a departure from decades of tradition, did he mention Trump or Biden by name. But he used some of Trump's most incendiary statements to offer a dark contrast of the choice facing Americans in November, comparing it to the eve of World War II when fascism spread its hate and destruction throughout Europe. See, that's a common thing. Don't mention your opponent. Be ultra ambiguous. Give yourself an out, some cover to say, oh, I wasn't talking about Trump. Oh, yeah, we know. It's implied. Here's the quote. When they speak of immigrants poisoning American blood and of mass deportations and detention camps, this is the language of destruction of 1939, Newsom said. Trump made those comments about immigrants poisoning the blood of our country during a campaign rally in Iowa last year, saying he did not know that Adolf Hitler had once said something similar. Hey, great minds think alike, right? Still, the comments have become a key talking point for the left as they paint Trump's candidacy as a warning for a dark future. All right, two more graphs. Or three, I'll do three more graphs. The political tone of Newsom's speech was not surprising, given his role as one of Biden's campaign top surrogates, which made him a target of Republicans who have repeatedly held up California as an example of Democrats' mismanagement, which is another reason why the Republicans are ready to pounce on Sheng Thao of Oakland. Republicans have pointed out to the state's $46.8 billion deficit, high tax rates, large homeless population, and the proliferation of property taxes in its largest cities, property crimes in its largest cities, acts which have been captured in viral social media clips. Well, I mean, that's going to be the case. You're going to see that. But those of us who live in California know that as tough as California is right now, I mean, it's not perfect. If you go to other states, and I was just in Washington State, which isn't as bad, but I've been around the country the last couple months. You are thankful to be in California. I mean, I have friends in Florida, and I was at the Florida Fringe Festival, the Orlando Fringe Festival. Orlando, which happens to be the blue part of the red state. My God, there is such a thriving gay community in Orlando that made me think, well, if there's such a thriving gay community, it must mean that they're okay. That you can live in a repressive political environment like Florida with a person like Ron DeSantis and still coexist. But why would you if you didn't have to? Why wouldn't you just live in California, where we have our own problems, but abortion isn't one of them? LGBTQ rights isn't one of them. I mean, that's kind of one of the reasons why, you think, oh, there's got to be a cheaper, you want to move to cheaper. You can move to cheaper. It means you're going to be in Ohio or West Virginia or someplace like that, North Dakota, where they have a governor who wants to be Donald Trump's vice president. After running against him in the primary, I thought Doug Burgum looked pretty solid as a moderate when he was running for president. Now he's running for vice president, and oh my God, he is as MAGA as it gets. So I don't trust him. Look, I know what this is like. I had a radio talk show job in San Francisco years ago, and as soon as the right took over, there was like a litmus test given to talk radio hosts. Are you right-wing enough to be on the air? And I wasn't. Thank God. I never regretted it, but I didn't work in talk radio again. That's a reality. So I can see Doug Burgum there chirping for Trump because he wants in. He wants to be, well, if you're vice president, you will be the heir, presumably, but tell that to Mike Pence. Right? All right. I think that's it. Enough of the state of the state. We got what we need from the state of the state. We're in good shape. Gavin Newsom's in charge. It's still frustrating to see homelessness. Still frustrating to see budgets seemingly go out of whack. But this is the way politics is played. And I know you could say balance the budget. And what would you cut? Always a hard thing. Cut services. Cut health care. Cut Medicare. Or Medicaid. Medi-Cal, excuse me. Medi-Cal. Medicaid Fed. Medi-Cal State. No, it's not easy. trying to get all sides to love you at the same time. But that's politics. All right, we're going to wrap up now. I hope you're cool. I hope you're staying cool because it's hot here in my COVID closet. If you found us, thank you. You can see us on Emil Amok 1 on YouTube, at Emil Amok 1 on YouTube, on Twitter at Emil Amok, on Facebook at fb.com/Emil Guillermo or emilguillermo.media. We're around. I'll repeat this. You can see it on YouTube. But we're here live at 2 p.m. Pacific. If there's a news story that I feel like commenting on, I wanted to comment on Julian Assange, but really, I felt nothing about that. I mean, he's out, he's free, but I did not. I just felt a little cold to the story. Less cold about the story of Vincent Chin, whose death day was the 23rd. He actually was beaten on the 19th, and we've been talking about it on the ALDEF blog. It's worth talking about. I know a lot of people say, Emil, that's history. That's Julian Assange is history, but that's slightly more recent than going back to 1982. Yes, I know, but for Asian Americans, this was important. The Vincent Chin story. Read up about it on my ALDEF blog, aaldef.org/blog. Also read my latest column on Sheng Thao, right there. Okay, that's it. That's it. Bugging out. Using a little loving kindness. Now, I heard an idea from one of my guru types. He said, if you have a preference for anything, you're asking for trouble. You're asking for trouble if you have a preference. And it made me think, well, what about in voting? I mean, if you preferred one over the other, you'll be upset if the other guy won, wouldn't you? And he said, well, that's the thing. You should be of the world, but not let the world get in the way of your spirituality. Not let the world get in the way with your oneness with the universe. That's what they tell the monks. Hey, read the newspaper, know what's going on in the world, but don't be part of the world. But it made me think, so we're not supposed to have any preference? No, because if you have a preference, you will be disappointed if your side loses. So it's better to love it all. Love it all. I think the biggest test for that might be the Dalai Lama. I mean, when Tibet is under fire from the Chinese. I mean, the Dalai Lama is not your military leader. How does the Dalai Lama tell people to fight? He says he's equanimous to it all. That's the secret. It doesn't make sense. I know, but it does make sense. If the goal is peace and love, you got to love it all. We got to swish out. Okay. So, just a thought. Think about that. Think about that. Love it all. If you love it all, no struggle, no disappointment. Happy. Accept it all. And so we end with a little loving kindness to yourself and to each other, but first to each other. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Emil, Amok to you. Till next time. Mahal Kita.